Breaking news out of Chapel Hill. Unfortunately, Seth Trimble has broken a bone in his left arm. What's it mean? And how do the Tar Heels move forward?
This is Tyler Hansbrough, and you're listening to Locked On Tar Heels.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? It is Sunday evening, November 9th. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Shade. You're joining me at the place to get your Tar Heels content every single day. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the number one sports podcast network there is. Thanks for making us your first listener watch every single day. I want to give a special shout out to all the everydayers here with us, all the members of the Locked On Tar Heels Discord, and of course, all our insiders as well. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use all across the app. Download it and get started today. You guys, difficult news that we have to deal with on a Sunday evening. I had actually already recorded Monday's episode of the show, kind of breaking down more from the Kansas game and thinking ahead a little bit to Tuesday night against Radford. I had settled in to enjoy an evening with my family, watching a movie and eating dinner together. And then we get this news. Seth Trimble has a broken bone in his left arm. So what I wanted to do, since I've already recorded Monday's episode, is go ahead and go live here tonight on Sunday to unpack that. So when you listen to Monday's episode of the show, you won't hear a single word about it other than I'm going to insert a thing to say, hey, we had already recorded this show. So that'll be that. And then Tuesday we'll obviously pick up as well. If you want to catch the Monday episode, I'm going to link it up there in the corner on YouTube, so you can do that. And obviously you can find it elsewhere on the audio platform. Let me just start by reading the press release from North Carolina in case you had missed that. And then we got a whole slew of things to unpack about the Seth Trimble news. Quote, University of North Carolina senior captain Seth Trimble suffered a broken bone in his left arm in a team workout on Sunday afternoon. He will undergo surgery this week. The exact length of his absence from the lineup will be better known following the surgery. Coach Davis says, so sad for Seth. He's such a great kid and teammate and has worked so hard for his senior year. He loves being a Tar Heel, and we love him. The good news is he will be back at some point this year, and I know he will continue to be a great leader for us until he can get back in the lineup. End quote from Coach Davis. The press release goes on. Trimble has played 104 games as a Tar Heel over the past 3+ seasons. He scored 17 points, and both Davis and Kansas head coach Bill Self singled out his outstanding defensive effort in the Tar Heels' 87-74 win over the Jayhawks. End press release. And so right out of the gate, one of the things you notice there is this is not something that happened in the game. You need to know this is something that happened Sunday afternoon as part of a team workout. So anybody that's like, man, I didn't see anything in the game. No, you're right. You didn't miss it. Nothing like that. It's just that it happened literally today on Sunday. And there's that. Obviously, we want to get into all the ramifications of this, good, bad, and ugly. But one of the things I always say is that the whole reason I do this, yes, because I love sports and you love sports, and specifically the Tar Heels for all of those of you who are here. But we do this because of the humanity of it, because I love to tell the stories of the young men and women playing the game that we love. And so before we touch any of that, just want to make sure to talk about the humanity of it. Man, this sucks. This sucks for Seth Trimble, who has had to deal with stuff like this. It feels like in some form or fashion, just about all 4 years of his time at North Carolina. This is it's such an emotional letdown. You're just 2 games into the season. You're riding high coming off of the Kansas victory. And it's like, now this. And it's just that quintessential, why can't we have nice things? And I don't even yet mean that for like Tar Heels fans. I mean that for Seth himself, and for his family. You think about his mom and his brother, JP, and all, like there's just his whole family just processing like, man, this is a fun senior year. Seth is killing it on both ends of the floor. And now this, and it just hurts. And so, man, just Seth and your family, love you. praying for you, thinking about you. Here's to a speedy and healthy recovery. And, may God guide the surgeons as they perform this surgery this week. Obviously, this is also a blow for Hubert Davis and the staff. Think about how much Coach Davis talks about the necessity that he has, that he knows all his players at a very intimate and relational level. He's not just some general manager sending out worker bees, right? Like he loves this young man deeply. And I know this hurts for Coach Davis and the staff as well. And so there's that, right? Like we have to start with the humanity of it. If we don't, we've begun to miss it. Now, with that said, obviously this means a ton for North Carolina as a team, because this is your senior leader, literally the only player who played meaningful minutes for this team last year that is back on the team this year. And that's the leadership and the captaincy of it, right? We haven't even mentioned then what he brings to the team as a defender, as an offensive player, as an athlete, all of that. And that is what Carolina's got to look at. Like, how do we even begin to think about replacing this? Well, we'll answer that in a little bit. First thing is, what do you do starting lineup wise? I think that's where probably everybody's brain goes. Like, just literally, who do you replace him with? Well, I think the positions that it doesn't really affect in the starting lineup is 1, 4, and 5. Kyle Evans is still going to be your point guard. He will trot out there. And then the front court of Caleb Wilson and Henry Vasar. Those three, I think, are locked in. You've seen, obviously, Seth starting at the 2 and Jaren Stevenson at the 3. My assumption and thought is that at some point in the next week or two that we'd see Luka Bogovac move into the starting lineup. I think he would have been all along had he been cleared sooner, but that's where that is. And in my mind, he would have come in at the starting 3, replacing Jaren Stevenson in that starting lineup. So what that means then for my expectation now is that you insert Luka Bogovac at the starting 2 and keep Jaren as the starting 3. And in that regard, you actually kind of get bigger. Carolina was already big in their starting lineup and now a couple inches bigger. Obviously, you lose quite a bit, and we'll talk about that with, just everything that Seth brings to the table. But my guess is that Tuesday night when Carolina hosts Radford, you will see Kyle Evans, Luka Bogovac, Jaren Stevenson, Caleb Wilson, and Henry Vasar as your starting 5. Beyond that, then, what does this mean for Carolina's depth? Well, thankfully, one of the things we've talked about a lot this offseason is that Carolina has more depth in the backcourt than they do in the front court, right? Where in the front court, it's like, man, kind of piecing it together after Caleb and Henry, after Wilson and Vasar. So think about even beyond Luka Bogovac coming into the starting lineup, assuming that's what Carolina does, you've got Jonathan Powell, who, I think we wrestled some with, hey, if Luka never gets cleared, who's your starting 3? And the debate was Jaren Stevenson or Jonathan Powell. Well, now his role moves up even more because he's probably your first guard at that kind of 2-3 position off the bench. You already had Derek Dixon playing a critical role off the bench, but as your backup point guard. So not necessarily replacing Seth's role, although part of what it may mean is that Dixon might need to take on more minutes now to replace, where Seth and Kyan and all that would have come together. So you've got Jonathan Powell, you've got Derek Dixon, and then I think the two guys, I think Powell probably sees the most increase here, but then the other two guys whose roles now become even more critical are Jaden Young and Isaiah Dennis. The nice thing with Jaden Young is this dude brings ACC experience to the table. And at Virginia Tech, like at the end of last year, man, he was doing a lot for the Hokies, helping in a ton of ways, quite frankly. Isaiah Dennis, had a finger injury he's still recovering from, and has someone that, everyone else healthy had projected wouldn't factor in much this year. Well, I don't think he now takes on a major role, but I think you see Isaiah Dennis now maybe grow to about 5 minutes a game or something of that nature. Now, especially over the course of the next 3, maybe 4 games, depending on how Carolina does with St. Bonaventure, you're going to see these guys gain even more minutes because it's Radford and because it's NC Central, right? It's like that kind of thing. And so you're going to see more minutes from these guys. So your options beyond Luka Bogovac moving into the starting lineup, again, my assumption is that Jonathan Powell and Derek Dixon, Jaden Young, and Isaiah Dennis will each see an increase. And I think the guy that sees the biggest increase is Jonathan Powell. Where we need to go next is, what all have you lost with Seth Trimble being out of the lineup for some amount of time? And by the way, how long is that? How long will Seth be out? When will he be back? And how long will it take him to be back up to speed? That's where we're going to head next. All of those conversations coming up in just a second. Right after I tell you about Wayfair. The holiday season, y'all, is right around the corner, and that means it's time to get your house ready. Whether you need more seating for guests, cozy new linens, or fun serveware for holiday hosting, Wayfair's Black Friday sale is here to help you make your space shine. And I'm really starting to think about that. Like, our family just set, like, here's the date we're going to decorate the inside of our house. I need to figure out when I'm going to get up on the roof and get all my lights done, because I'm that guy. Well, the best part with Wayfair, when you figure all that out, you don't have to wait. You make these purchases, and Wayfair's Black Friday deals are happening all month long with up to 70% off everything from sofas to spatulas. And also, it's great because Wayfair's stuff ships really, really fast. You'll get it in time for the holidays. Browsing through their site, it's easy to find pieces that actually fit our family style, and will do the same for yours. Nothing generic, just quality designs that feel personal. You ever hosted a family holiday gathering, man? You know how much difference just a few new touches can make to it all. And Wayfair makes that easy. So don't miss out on these early Black Friday deals. Head to wayfair.com right now to shop Wayfair's Black Friday sale for up to 70% off. Once again, that's wayfair.com. And the sale is going to run all the way through December 7th. Here's where we need to go next. What all have you lost with Seth Trimble being out for an indefinite amount of time at this point, right? Well, as the press release said, we'll find out more after he has his surgery at some point this week. Hopefully, they're able to do that sooner rather than later. Obviously, let's talk the on-the-floor leadership. You've lost your best individual defender in the backcourt. And you know, I mean, honestly, Seth is regarded as one of the best defenders in the entire country. It said it in the press release, but how much Bill Self noted the job that Seth did on Darren Peterson, how much Coach Davis did the same. And Seth was going to do that every game, right? Take on each team's best perimeter offensive player. You lose that. Somebody else has to step in and be that guy. And Carol, like, it's one of those situations, and it's very cliche, but it's very true. There is no replacing a Seth Trimble, right? Like, there's not somebody on this roster that does exactly what he does. So you got to find different ways to piece it together and maybe even play a little bit differently, right? And so we'll look at some potential silver linings here in a second. But with Seth, you've also lost that just dynamic transition athlete. That's one of the things that having the floor spacing of Kyan Evans and Luka and even Henry and Caleb to be able to step out, Jaren Stevenson as well, Jonathan Powell, like all of these guys can step out and hit it. Seth already has superior athleticism and was going to benefit so much from these guys spacing the floor, just giving him a lane to the basket. We've seen it in his strength, like that continuation and one he had the other night against Kansas, in the way he's able to get out and finish, use his speed and athleticism to get to the hole. Carolina doesn't have that dude. They got to find that. Obviously, Seth has struggled from beyond the arc this year. That's just a fact. He's 0 of 7 thus far. But one of the things that Seth has really grown in shooting is his free throw percentage, where his freshman and sophomore year, I think you would term him as not a good free throw shooter. Last year, Seth was over 80%, and he was perfect, literally perfect on the season so far this year. Now, 2 games, I get it, small sample size, but it ain't nothing. So now you've got to replace that. Thankfully, again, Luka Bogovac is a phenomenal free throw shooter if he steps into that. So there's all those things and so much more. Seth's intangibles of being a coach on the floor, getting the guys where they need to go and where they need to be. The other thing that you lose, but maybe just for a little bit, is Seth's leadership. And I wonder if that's an area where, you know, like Seth has had to take on the leadership mantle for this team that, quite frankly, was lacking that vocal leadership last year. They had it 2 years ago, chiefly with Harrison Ingram and Cormac Ryan. that just wasn't RJ all that much, right? And so, but that vocal leadership, Seth has really leaned into that. The nice thing is, it's not like he's got to have this surgery and he'll probably have to do some kind of therapy things and not be around like literally all the time. But for the most part, the leadership that Seth brings, Carolina will not miss out on that other than in the flow of the game direction. Seth will be able to provide that from the bench and maybe even have a little bit of a different viewpoint than he otherwise would have and be able to lead guys in other types of ways. So there's some possibility there. But you've just lost such a unique, athletic, defensive player who can do things offensively that Carolina doesn't necessarily have, other than the fact that this year they've got an athlete in the front court who does kind of rival Seth, and that's the guy that went up to where they doubled up on an alley-oop the other day, and that's Caleb Wilson, obviously, who does rival Seth's athleticism, just at a different position. When you think about broken bones, and again, this one's in the forearm, and we don't know the press release at this time, we haven't been told the severity of it. Is it a compound fracture? Is it a hairline fracture? What are we looking at? What are we dealing with? If it's requiring surgery, that means there's got to be some level of severity to it instead of like, hey, just slap a cast on it and we're good. You know what I mean? So there is some reading between the lines there. So that leads me to imagine that it's going to be more than your garden variety. Hey, get the cast on for 4 weeks and then you're good, right? This would make me imagine that we're talking something in the 6 to 8 week range. And if I am pulling my calendar up as we speak, because I actually haven't gone yet and put together the math of it. So broke it today. Let's just pinpoint it from today, not knowing when the surgery is going to be. So 6 weeks from today, November 9th, is 16th, 23rd, 30th, December 7, 14, 21. December 21st, let's pull up Carolina's basketball schedule in real time here. So let's say it's 6 weeks to the day from today. And again, I'm not even accounting for the surgery yet. That means Carolina would have gone through Radford, NC Central, Navy, both Fort Myers games, the Kentucky game, Georgetown, USC, Upstate, ETSU, and the Ohio State game. And so Carolina, like 6 weeks from today, December 21st, is the day after the CBS Sports Classic, the day before Carolina's final non-conference game against ECU. Now that is on a wildly minimum. And this is all hypothetical. We have not heard anything yet from the staff, right? So this is coming from my guesstimations. All that said, at minimum, Seth misses every meaningful non-con game remaining on the schedule. And that includes all, we talked about the 4 swing games of Kansas, Michigan State, Kentucky, and Ohio State. Those are gone. So is the Georgetown game, right? Because that's earlier than Ohio State. Now, if we go to the long end of this at 8 weeks, that gets us to December 28th, January 4th. At that point, January 4th, Carolina's first ACC game is Florida State on December 30th, and then at SMU on Saturday, January 3rd. So if it's 8 weeks to the day from today, Seth misses all the rest of the regular season other than the final 16 games of ACC play. That's what we're looking at. Now, that, again, doesn't account for, maybe surgery is tomorrow, Monday. Maybe it's Tuesday. Maybe it's later in the week as they kind of figure out what they need to do, Wednesday or Thursday. And again, that's just a 6 to 8 week, assuming that since surgery is required, it's going to mean more than just like, oh, we'll let it heal for 4 weeks, right? But then keep in mind, it's not just about the bone healing. It's once that's done, then you got to work strength back into it. And obviously they'll be doing some level of like, can we do any of that as things progress here in the healing process, or do we just need to let it sit? All the medical personnel will be able to discuss that. But once a cast is off or whatever it is, then Seth can start working at building strength back into it, and getting comfortable with it. If you've ever had an injury and you're an athlete, you know that it takes a while to trust that part of your body again, right? Like, is something going to happen? Is it going to get caught or twisted? There's just all of that mental side to it. Now, one thankful thing, it's his left arm. It's not his shooting hand. That is good news, right? Like, yes, he will still use his offhand for all sorts of things, but he doesn't have to retrain the shooting side of it. And that is a win. And that is good news, right? Like, we can certainly recognize that. And then because of all that, I think we do have to ask, obviously, the Coach Davis said in his statement, the good news is he will be back at some point this year. Well, what is that point? Because if we get 8 weeks from today and you've missed all but 16 games of the ACC schedule, and then you'd have those 16 games plus any ACC tournament games and any NCAA tournament games, should Carolina be fortunate enough to keep winning as they've done through the first 2 games. I think the other question we have to ask is there a world in which we do not see Seth Trimble again playing for the Tar Heels in 2025-26? I mean, it's the human body, right? Like, yes, we make all the estimations we want to in the world, but you just don't know how bodies are going to react. Sometimes things take longer to heal. Sometimes it might make more sense to say, hey, getting you back is going to do more detriment to your arm than, and it would be wisest to stay out. Like, that has to be in consideration for this team and for all of us. Like, just the reality that Seth Trimble might be done for this season. Now, if that's the case, he's only played 2 games. Obviously, he would be able to get a red shirt if he wanted to, right? Like, who knows what will be in Seth's mind? I hope that's not the case. I hope, like, he has worked so hard to be part of this team and to be a leader for this team and to bring it all, like, it just, like, even back to transfer portal, with him doing so much, with meeting with the incoming transfer, like all of that stuff, man. You just think about everything that Seth's put in, and you desperately want him to be able to get back. But there's also a world when it's like, would it be better for you to be able to sit out and fully heal and come back 2026, 27 for a 5th year, which, good grief, who knows if he'd want to do that or not. Seth loves this place and he loves college basketball, so maybe so. But I want to make sure we think about the potential that's out there, that we might have seen the last of Seth Trimble for this year. Again, hope not. And I hope we find out, like, no, it's actually going to be 4, 5, 6 weeks and he'll be back. And if so, fantastic news. But I'm just providing all the potentials, right? Now, one of the things I want to consider before we get out of here, and I do want to look at your comments to see what kind of questions you guys have as well, is, are there any silver linings that are potential to this thing? And is there any world in which Seth coming back could be a detriment to this team in the long term? I'll try to answer both of those questions for us coming up in just a second. Right after I tell you about FanDuel. Y'all, the NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on that action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything, from who's going to score the next point to fourth quarter comebacks and everything in between. Plus, you can even combine all your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at an even bigger payout. Man, all of this keeps every game exciting, especially when your team is making that late push. Let's look at National Player of the Year odds, where Caleb Wilson is plus 3,000 at FanDuel. ACC odds, somehow Carolina is still 4th behind NC State, Duke, then Louisville, then NC State, then Carolina at plus 1,000 to win the ACC. I think those odds might have just taken a hit, unfortunately, but there you go. Looking ahead to football on Saturday, Wake is a 5.5-point favorite over the Tar Heels. Maybe you want to get in on any of that action. Well, if so, right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head on over to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Look, anytime a player is injured, it's sad and disappointing, but I think we do have to remember that in sports, there's this next man up mentality. I mean, Seth himself will say that, like, hey, my teammate, we haven't heard anything from Seth yet as I record this, but I imagine that when we do hear from Seth, he's going to say things like, hey, my teammates got this. I'm excited to support my guys and help them carry on and do it, right? Like, that's just the person that he is. And that's what I expect him to say. And we'll say, hey, look, like, next man up mentality, that's sports. And unfortunately, that's true. Are there any silver linings? Well, one of the things that's true is this gives Carolina an opportunity, a forced opportunity, but an opportunity to build some depth. It's going to force both freshmen, non-Caleb Wilson freshmen, Derek Dixon and Isaiah Dennis, to step forward. It's going to expedite Luka Bogovats's minutes, right? Like, previous to this, Luka was going to be able to continue to slowly learn the chemistry and everything with his team. Now I think he's more forced into the spotlight, and at some level, good. This is the time to do it because you've got 4 games before you've got to play Michigan State, a game in which, by the way, Seth Trimble's like everything he brought would have come in major handy. So a silver lining is an opportunity for those guys to get more minutes. Jonathan Powell as well, Jaden Young as well to step in. A silver lining is that somebody else has to be the on the court in the moment leader. Obviously, Seth can provide that from the sideline, but like, who's going to be the guy that huddles everyone together after a foul? I've seen Kyan Evans doing some of that, and you want that from your point guard, similar to a quarterback, right? Watch Kyan, watch the guys. Who is going to step Tuesday night against Radford? Who does that? Somebody's going to have to build in that leadership. Who's communicating all the things that Seth would be communicating on the floor? One of the silver linings, as I said, you got to figure out how to play differently. With the struggles that we've seen from Seth to shoot the 3 early in the season, this provides an opportunity to have some more 3-point shooting in the lineup. With if Luka comes into the starting role, or even Jonathan Powell, right? Like, that's more shooting. You got to wrestle with the loss of the athleticism and things like that, but it's possibility that Carolina might be a better shooting team for whatever period of time this is. All of that. And then, of course, I said I want to ask the question as well, how could it hurt when Seth comes back? It's the same kind of thing of like, hey, we don't want to go to Luka in the starting lineup yet because we've been rolling with Jaren Stevenson as our starting 3. It's that kind of thing. Is there a world in which you've built some chemistry and it's kind of tough to get Seth back into that? At some level, no, because he's the senior captain and he's going to be there all along, and you know what his role is. The staff knows what his role is, and so you slot it back in. But for some of the players who have gotten used to playing without him, I've seen this with other teams where a guy gets healthy like around tournament time and decides to play, and it's hard for the team to re-operate in that regard of bringing that guy back. So that's one of the things we're going to have to watch with that and see how it goes. Let's see if there's some questions, observations that we want to get from you guys. Drew 1986 says this one really hurts. In the transfer portal era, Seth remained loyal, and this was his team for the first time. And that's, man, it's like you don't want injuries to happen to anybody, but somebody like Seth who's been through it, who's paid his dues, who, as Drew says here, like, this is his team. That stinks. That's hard. But that's life, right? And we learn through the adversity and we grow. Joseph Medlin says, everyone needs to stop acting like he's done for the season. Yes, as a reminder, I am painting a picture of all the possibilities, both ends of the spectrum. I painted a picture of what happens if he's done for the season. But as Coach Davis says, Seth, he didn't say we expect. He said Seth will be back at some point this season. Again, we don't know the actual timeline of that. What does it look like or anything like that? But, I mean, it could be sometime late December, early January. That's a possibility. And then if it gets longer, sometimes you've seen things where it's great to have someone come back late in the season. We talked to Tyler Zeller about that this summer. You might remember Tyler Zeller's freshman season. He got hurt very early on. This was the 08-09 championship team, and he came back late in the season, and it added, like, he didn't play the same critical role that Seth did, but he was a part of that front court, and I think he really helped rotate with Tyler Hansbrough, with Deion Thompson, and that whole crew keeping it going. So Joseph brings up a great point, like, hey, Coach Davis said we expect him back, and we will look at that. And so there is all of these things. T-Man, it's great to see T-Man. Man, so many of our folks from the Locked On Tar Heels Discord. Great to see all of you guys. Marion's in here. The Nintendo Nerds in here. This is great. He says, we need that Luka playmaking. This is one of the things. Assuming, as I said, that Luka moves into the starting 2 role, you've now got 2 point guards basically as your starters that you trust either one to be a main playmaker distributor bringing the ball up. Both of whom are 40% 3-point shooters, both of whom are 80% free throw shooters, both of whom can get into the lane, both of whom can create for each other. And then they're dishing out to 3 guys who are all 6'10" or taller. So, I mean, there are good possibilities ahead. It just hurts for Seth. So, Luka's playmaking combined with Kyan's and things could be great. Lots of calls for prayers. I love this with it. John Bolton says he will not be out for the season, but the season may not be as good as we had hoped. Yeah, I mean, I think it's funny. You haven't watched or listened to it yet, but I've already recorded it, so I know. I had just said on Monday's show, man, Carolina's both floor and ceiling are raised. And now, unfortunately, I have to recant to that. At least in some regard, even if Seth comes back. Assuming that Carolina takes some hits here, the floor and the ceiling have to go down at least a little bit. Again, the good news is you've got some bye games here to figure it out. And that is a helpful thing. And so lots of good stuff there. Yeah, all sorts of thoughts. Jared Williams says, and I think this is the critical part of it too. So long as Caleb is hunting, we good. And he says that Boozer Wilson matchup is going to be cinema. Look, here's the reality of the matter. I'm not surprised at all if it's Caleb Wilson that steps in to a critical leadership role for this. I mean, lots of guys can do it, right? Like I think Kyan will bring some of that, etc. But man, just the unique person that Caleb is going to help continue to rally this team together. And again, Seth will be able to do that from the sideline, but knowing that Carolina has this dynamic Caleb Wilson, which reminds me, I remember thinking, and it's one of those things where now you're like, dang it, did I jinx it? I remember thinking everything feels too good right now. Carolina hasn't been able to have nice things like this for a long time. Like I'm just so worried that Caleb or Henry gets hurt. I remember I thought that literally yesterday, and now it's Seth. Man, it just hurts. And so there's a lot here, a lot to deal with, a lot of good thoughts from everyone in the comments. I'm so thankful for you all being here with us. Marion asks, this is a great question. Is there any way we can send him cards or encouragement? Marion, I will try to follow up on that because, man, as we talked about the humanity of it, like I absolutely love that thought in that question. Really appreciate that in a major way. So you guys, we're going to get out of here for tonight. Again, I've already recorded Monday's show, so make sure you lock in with that as well. But gosh, with this breaking news and with the major ramifications of it, wanted to make sure to go ahead and get in here on Sunday night to talk about it more in detail. So I thank you all for taking time out of your Sunday evening to be with me and hang out. It's always good to be together, even under sad circumstances, right? And but Carolina back on the floor Tuesday, and we'll see what Carolina chooses to do as they take on Radford Tuesday night. Be ready to be there with you. Obviously, we will be live after the show as always, and really interested also to hear from Coach Rob later in this week about his thoughts on what Carolina should do going forward. You guys, if you haven't subscribed to the show on YouTube, do it right down there. If you haven't joined the Locked On Tar Heels Discord, we would love to see you in there. That link's in the show notes. Free to join. We're talking about that all the time. If you haven't joined our Discord, or excuse me, our Insiders community, that's literally the first people. As soon as this news was broken to me, that was the first group that I told about it. So they knew before everyone else. If you want to be part of that group, that link's in the show notes as well. Even on a day with devastating, tough, frustrating news, it's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. We'll be back again on Monday for the show that's again already recorded, and then on Tuesday to get ready for Radford. All that coming up. But until then, peace.